Hey everyone, welcome back into the Sampleist. My name's Greg Revell and I'm delighted to have you drop in and check out today's video. Today I'm really excited to bring you an amazingly beautiful string offering from Vienna Symphonic Library, Synchron Duality Strings. For Duality Strings, VSL have recorded two string ensembles simultaneously, each one playing in separate rooms at the famous Synchron stage in Vienna. The larger ensemble played in the main hall, stage A, and the smaller ensemble was recorded in the relatively dry stage B. The result is a dynamically rich and lustrous sound, allowing you to create an amazingly wide range of sound tapestries, from the open and wide to the small, warm and intimate. Throw in an insanely extensive set of articulations and you have an extremely detailed and powerful string library right at your fingertips. Duality Strings comes in three distinct offerings: regular, Sordino and Colors, representing different articulation sets to choose from, each of which has a standard mics version and a full mic offering. At the time of shooting this video, the regular library is priced at €595 for the standard version and €960 for the full version. Sordino is €545 and €870 for the standard and full, and the Colors library costs €195 and €320 for the standard and full mic versions respectively. And as always, our Declaration of Independence. While I'm very grateful to Paul and the VSL team for making a copy of Duality Strings available for today's video, they have not had any input whatsoever into its production. At the Sampleist, we pride ourselves on being free to give our own opinions, unfettered by obligation. And before we kick things off, if you love this content, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to keep on top of the latest news and products from the world of virtual instruments. With that said, let's fire up the door and dive right into VSL's Duality Strings. Welcome to VSL's Duality Strings. So let's dive right in to have a look at VSL's Duality Strings. Now, I'm super excited to show you this today because this is my first introduction myself personally into the world of VSL. And my goodness, I got blown out of the water with Duality Strings. I've got dozens of string libraries, but I don't think anything comes close to the level of detail, the level of sophistication, and the level of control that this product offers you. The set of available articulations are among the deepest I've ever seen in any product. The range of microphone options, if you choose to purchase them, is just out of this world. So those two dimensions of articulations and the mixing capabilities with the microphones is like nothing I've ever seen. And let's not, of course, forget that the actual quality of the recording is on par with anything I've ever heard. It's just fantastic. But with all this sophistication, there's a little bit of a trade-off for a relatively short video. I won't have the ability to go in and show you every single feature. I'd refer you over to the VSL YouTube channel because Paul and the team over there have done an amazing job in giving everything you need. What I need to do, as I like to say, is give you enough to be dangerous and navigate your way around. All right, so let's do that. What you see here is an empty instance of the Synchron player. The Synchron player being the flagship product of VSL that is their host for their instruments. You're presented at first with an empty Synchron player and giving you the ability to create your own customized patches, which allows you to create very sophisticated offerings. We're not going to cover that today because, again, Paul and the team do a really good job of showing you that over on their side. I want to focus on the actual functionality of what VSL is all about. So let's draw our attention to the right-hand panel. You have the preset panel, which is where we're going to spend most of our time today. There is the patches themselves, which are the individual articulations from which you can create your own customized patches if you would like. And there's also a panel for mixer presets where you can save and customize your own mixer microphone settings. I'm going to focus over here on the preset panel today because this is where all the action happens. But it's worth just persisting momentarily to show you how the library is set out. I think it's really, really well done. I have installed all three instances or versions or flavors, if you will, of the Duality Strings. I've got the regular, I've got the Con Sordino, and the colors loaded up on this system here. And they're reflected in these folders: regular, Con Sordino, and 3A colors. In addition to that, you also get a series of patches, which is, in this case, the regular and the Sordino that are merged, meaning that you have a series of patches that allows you to key switch between the regular and the Sordino libraries. And this one, 3B, is the same principle, but applied to the regular library and the colors library, again, allowing you to load up patches that allows you to key switch between those two libraries. And finally, a third one, which is the regular, the Sordino, and the colors are all merged in an all singing and all dancing series of patches that allows you to key switch between all three. And finally, I beg to differ, I forgot, this is the last one, the Tutti Pianissimo colors, which is part of the colors library, showing you some lovely patches of tutti flavor in a soft pianissimo. We'll hopefully get a chance to have a quick look at that. So pushing on, it's worth having a quick look to see how it's set out. I'm going to use the regular library to display this because all the other sets are all set out similarly. As you can see, we have 4 sublayers or subfolders, I should say, giving you the option on how you want to work with the library patches themselves. You have the velocity crossfade, sustain, crossfade with a mod wheel, crossfade and velocity control, and velocity. Essentially, 4 different methods by which you may wish to choose to manage all your patches. In summary, it means, for example, crossfade sustain allows you to control the longs with your mod wheel and rely on velocity for your shorts. The crossfade on the mod wheel allows you to control the shorts and the longs with just the mod wheel. The velocity crossfade and the velocity control basically allows you to control the velocity, control the longs with the mod wheel or using velocity. And then the final one, the velocity, is that you control the volume on the longs and the shorts with just velocity. So again, depending on your style of workflow, you can choose a series of patches that you see fit to use. Today, I'm going to focus on the crossfade sustain with the mod wheel, which is the controlling the longs with the CC1, your mod wheel, and then relying on velocity to control your shorts. That's my preferred way of working. Okay, so let's load up the first violins. I'm going to double click on the patch and it will load up into the window, as you see here. So what you see immediately when you load them up is the top, what's known as the dimension tree. Again, I won't go through it in detail because it's quite an in-depth concept, all handled very well over at the VSL webpage. But essentially you have the articulations controlled by a series of different dimensions. Think of them as like subfolders on your hard drive, on your laptop, that you can choose between the shorts, which are the different various types of shorts. In this case, the shorts are comprised of spiccato, spiccato tight, staccato, detaché, detaché marcato, detaché soft, and there's another dimension which is you can use it either in a bold or an agile way. Depending on what you pick, releases or exposes the different contextual layers. So in longs, here's all your different types of longs, the different release patterns available, and the different attack options. Performance legato itself, normal, agile legato, auto speed legato, slurred legato, portamento legato, which also, depending on what you choose, has a various number of sub-dimensions. Poco vibrato, multi vibrato, vibrato crossfade, espressivo, with various release options and attacks. So this is an extremely sophisticated set of options. There is literally no different type of sound that you can't create with each of these things. The trills come in half tone, whole tone, minor third and a major third, but you can transition through a normal or legato or a slurred option. Pizzicato can be regular or a snap pizz or collegno. Harmonics, long tremolo, long crossfade tremolo, a regular crossfade with harmonics tremolo, a tremolo with crossfading to a harmonics with staccato. There's a normal attack, a fast attack. Glissando, glissando tremolo, glissando crossing with a tremolo in a fast or a slow manner in octaves, fifths or seconds, and you can change the direction either up or down. Runs come with legato runs, which in the case of legato, you have the interval between an octave, fifth, a third, and a third mediant. Your key, you choose the key center for your runs. You can change the direction of the runs up and down. And finally, there's a custom option that allows you to customize this any further. Phew, that's a lot just for the first violins. Let's go back momentarily to the longs and draw your attention briefly down in the bottom panel. Again, just a brief overview. You have an amazing range of CCs that you can use to control and vary the sound of your chosen patch. CC7 is your master volume. There's our familiar expression and crossfade or modulation for CC11 and CC1, but you can also adjust the timbre with CC8. There's a legato blur that softens the legato transitions, CC33. There's a dynamic range you can vary up and down. You can change the attack, the release. There's a stretch factor, which allows inbuilt time stretching on the samples. You can change ever so nuanced in a nuanced way. You can humanize the delay scale with CC25. You can humanize the tuning ever so subtly. You can even got a humanize amount, which allows to put in some human rather than making it sound robotic. Then, of course, there is the reverb. That's all for any given patch. This tab here, the control window, allows you to set those CC11s that we just discussed. There's something about the dimension controls. We'll talk about that a little later. You can even edit some of the details around the samples with the attack, and the hold, and the delay. And then finally, the main part, the second part of what I'm going to talk about today is the mix window. This is the window that allows you to vary and mix the various microphone settings you have available to customize your sound. Whew, that's an awful lot. So again, all I'm going to focus on today is the performance side of things and the mixer window. So let's sit with the mix window at the moment and choose one of these functions. Now, of course, I won't be able to play through every patch, but again, let's go through some of the basic ones. Here is the longs. It's a poco vibrato, which is a little bit of vibrato with a normal release and a normal attack. Now, the Synchron player has a feature that when you select a patch, it doesn't automatically load them into memory. You can see that down there with the grey keys down the bottom. But as soon as you hit a note, it automatically goes and loads. So this is what this one sounds like. Isn't that gorgeous? A little bit of vibrato, but if you want, you can also bring in some much more vibrato. Heavier vibrato. A normal release. Listen to the tail. But you can have a soft release. Or indeed, a very soft release. You can control the attack, a normal attack, or a soft attack, a fast attack, or sforzando attack. So very, very flexible. While we're on longs, if I choose the vibrato, there is an option you can see it's exposed. I'm going to double click to load the vibrato, force the load. It exposes a dimension which I call CC20, which I have connected to this controller here, that allows you to control whether you crossfade from a little bit of vibrato, poco vibrato, to molto vibrato. So again, playing it. Oops, I'm going to go back to the normal attack. Expansive, extensive control over every aspect of your sound. And when you're finished with a particular patch as we have here, just while we're noodling around, you can double click on the leftmost articulation set to unload it for memory. Helps save your memory. Let's have a look at the performance legato. Again, I'm going to force load all of it here. Very, very extensive legato with a normal legato, an agile legato, an auto speed control legato, slurred legato, and a portamento. And as I said, relative to each of these, you can have various options of various dimensions. An infinite, almost infinite number of different options are available. I'm going to play the performance legato, and you can see I'm going to crossfade here with CC20, and I'm going to try and control with the CC1. And CC11. So if you have a quick look at here on the perform, on the left-hand side, I beg your pardon, I'm controlling expression and modulation wheel here. A slurred legato. And a beautiful portamento. And finally, I mean, there's so many options here, but I'm just going to return to the slurred legato or an auto speed. Let's have a play with that. Again, a whole new tree of options opens up. With auto speed, a normal agile legato, which is controlled by this CC here, which I'm going to just relearn it here on this device here. There we go. Now, in fact, I'm going to learn it onto this device here. There you go. I've made it CC16 for me. So again, you control the auto speed of the legato with your CC controller. While also controlling the crossfade, as you can see over here. And again, of course, all the different types of releases and the attacks. So as you can see, I've spent hours trying to navigate through this. The number of dimensions, like these folding, different unfolding levels of detail is just amazing, just immense. The level of sampling and engineering that's gone into this is out of this world. I'm now going to switch over to the cellos to continue this conversation about the different articulations. So double clicking on the cellos loads them up. None of the samples are currently loaded, but as soon as I hit something, I better turn my thing down. Another thing I'll say about these samples is that that's a long patch. Normally a long patch, it's quite easily when you're just noodling around to get the notes to overlap and you get buzz notes if you like. But this one does a really good job of separating the longs. This is not legato, but you don't ever hear, very rarely, unless I really make a conscious effort to play two notes simultaneously. But playing single notes for a long patch is beautiful and clean. Again, the same range as we saw earlier with the violins, the bocco vibrato, molto vibrato, crossfade, espressivo. Espressivo with a soft release I'm going to go for. So that lovely soft slight swell you can see here, that's not me doing anything with the CC modulators, the CC 1 and 11. That's baked into the sample, as is you can get a swell, and I'm going to choose the normal release. Absolutely gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. We must have a quick look at the tremolos. I'm going to force load all the tremolos. Fast tremolo. A slow tremolo. Crossfade your tremolo, again using, in this case, CC20. Have a look at the third dimension here, the crossfade dimension. Slow, fast. A long crossfade, so you get a crossfade between a long note into a tremolo with a legato transition, perhaps. Absolutely gorgeous. A little bit more play, perhaps. The trills, not just your standard half and whole tone. You get a minor third and a major third. Oh, I just realised too, if you double click the name, you do have the chance to change the name. I personally wouldn't do that, but you may well do so if you want. A major third. Let's try it with a D. And the transition itself on a major third can be a normal transition or a legato or indeed a slurred transition. That's an amazing detail. Pizzicato harmonics. A staccato harmonics. That's the first time I've seen such depth in a harmonics to give you staccato, not only just the traditional long harmonics. Oh, accidentally changed. I beg your pardon. Let's go back to those tremolos, harmonics. You can key switch on A6 to give that harmonic long a normal or a fast attack. Compared to, that's gorgeous. How about a harmonic tremolo? That's a very sophisticated articulation. And crossfade and staccato. It's just absolutely amazing. Now we heard a moment ago glissando, so I accidentally slipped into a glissando. That one's a glissando tremolo played fast in an octave in the up direction. How about a conventional tremolo played slow in a fifth? Or maybe you only need a second. But of course, every glissando that goes up in an octave may want to come down. Oops, I've lost my glissandos. Coming down. Glissando, fast, octave up. And up. And as you'd expect, like we said, we touched on the glissando tremolo. You also get the glissando tremolo, which crossfades from a glissando to a glissando tremolo using your CC control. So let's see what that sounds like. And that can be fast, up to a fifth, but going back down again. That's an amazing array of possibilities. And finally, maybe we should have a look at some runs. Runs come in a legato form or détaché. You get I think it was the same, yes, an octave, a fifth, and a third key, and a third key with a mediant. You have different key centers across the whole seven, and you can go in either direction. So let's do an legato run in the key of A major. I have to find myself where I am on my board. But of course, you need to be able to go up as well. Absolutely gorgeous. Wow, so this is really deep. Okay, I've barely touched on everything that you can see here, but let's have a look at the double basses. Let's give them a run, the good old double basses. So we'll load them up. And not every feature in, say, a bass is going to be, a violin is going to be available in a bass, I imagine, right? Because it's a very low register instrument, so it has a different timbre, a different flavour, and there might be some restrictions on some of them, which is a mirror of what can actually be done in real life. But shorts, spiccato, But there's also not just a spiccato, but a spiccato tight, a more tighter version. Or a softer staccato. Détaché. But not only that, there's a détaché marcato with a slight punch. So a marcato is like a pulse at the start. But that can also be a soft détaché. And the whole range of possible options also exists, from the longs with all the vibrato, the different attacks, to performance legato for the bass. There's tremolo, trills, pizzicato that we just had a look at. Let's have a look at the snap pizz, or the Bartok pizz as it might be known. And a traditional col legno. So those who aren't familiar, the col legno is when the string player turns their bow over and hits the strings with the back of their bow. Really, really nice. But I also, having now covered off the violins, the violas, the cellos and the basses, we didn't touch on the violas or the second violins, but all the articulations are exactly the same across there. So poor old violas, they tend to get left out, don't they? So the last two I want to touch on briefly is the tutti patches. So as the name implies, the entire string orchestra is mapped across the whole keyboard range. So I'm going to load up the tutti full range. And as I'll show you shortly, there's a compressed range. So the full range, as the name suggests, is across all the keyboard, right down the bottom end. So let's have a look at the very bottom end of a bass, getting into the cello territory, to the violas, into the violin range. This is a beautiful tool, and in fact I'm going to show you a composition shortly. I used this very patch to help me map out what the piece was going to sound like. Now to complete this tack here, this patch description here, you can see the long with the different vibrato options, with different release options and different attack options. There's also an option here where you can basically turn off different parts of the range. If you only want violas, seconds, violins and first violins, or you can load up the whole lot. But let's have a quick listen. Now, this was the patch I think I was using at the very start of this video. If you heard that, it was just me noodling on. Getting up into the upper range. Again, amazing level of control. There's a performance legato, tremolo, the pizzicatos that we're all familiar with. Harmonics in a tutti. Wow, gorgeous. Leave it to you to go and find and explore more glissandos, runs, just absolutely beautiful and amazing. And that's just the regular library itself. I haven't even gone into the Con Sordino. So let's touch on that very, very briefly because it's exactly the same. I think it's almost exactly the same set of articulations for the full range of Con Sordino, except obviously in a consord setting. So again, for those who aren't familiar, a consord is a soft rubber mute that string players apply to their strings at the bridge end of their instrument to give it a soft, silky, smooth sound. So let's close up our regular. Let's open up Con Sordino. I'm going to go for the crossfade one, and I'm going to use the cello for the purposes of this part of the discussion. Again, let's go for the longs. We'll load up some shorts as well, but I'm going to start with the longs and that lovely silky sound. And a quick look at the shorts. And again, the range of legato, tremolo, trills, pizzicato, harmonic glissando, and the runs, of course, in a consord. So I'll leave the consords there because I think you get the idea. It's exactly the same setup as we had with the regular. But we're not finished yet because although we have the regular and the Con Sordino, I need to show you the colors library, which is absolutely gorgeous. So the colors library similarly has the 4 subfolders of the different various types of management. I'm going to use the crossfade sustain as I have done. And the different colors that are available here are a new set of flautando and softer versions. So the colors library, as the name suggests, softer, more different types of timbre and opportunities. So you have over here, it's a smaller library to complement the 2 larger offerings. We have shorts, longs, performance legato, tremolo, trills, but each one has a different set of dimension trees, or let's call them subfolders if you like, that allows you, in this case, to load up longs, which includes a flautando, which I absolutely adore the flautando, one of my favorite patches. With a more vibrato, should you wish. Lovely soft vibrato. Or you can indeed crossfade between the 2 using CC20. Or indeed a normal attack and a fast attack. Again, hugely, hugely powerfully and deep. If you have a flautando, there is a ponticello. A ponticello, again, for those who aren't familiar, is when the string player plays their notes towards the bridge, giving a very raspy, sharp sound. And likewise, you get the various different attacks. So it could be a ponticello with a fast attack. And the final one is it allows you to do a crossfade between the flautando and the ponticello using, well, in this case, CC3, but I'm just going to remap it very briefly for our purposes to CC16, flottando, into a ponticello. Absolutely beautiful. I won't take through every single feature here, but they're absolutely gorgeous. The performance legato with flottando, taking in a normal flottando legato with a slurred legato with crossfade on your vibrato and controlling it with another crossfade for different, if you want to crossfade the vibrato and various attacks. The tremolo, again, a fast tremolo or a crossfaded tremolo with a normal attack or a fast attack. The trills in a flautando, half tone, whole tone, minor third, major third. That's the whole story with them. You know, you apply all them with the range of articulations you get in the regular library. As you see here is just amazing. So you have here a very comprehensive set of articulations. I personally don't think there is anything in this string library that you will A, find in any other string library, B, having the control over you have in any other library, and thirdly, just the engineering quality and the options of how it's all laid out. Very well designed way of handling all these articulations. And having got through all three parts of the library and on the huge range of articulations and control, I still haven't actually shown you the mixing window. In order to do that and all the microphone settings, I'm going to go back to the cellos in the regular library. So let's load them up as we have done here. I'm going to just preload up some articulations as we have here. Beautiful. And let's turn to the mix window. Now, this is really where a lot of the magic happens in you being able to control your sound. Again, to recall, we have two ensembles in this recording. One, a larger ensemble in the main stage, and B, a second smaller ensemble in a dry stage. And again, depending on which pack you've purchased, gives you different access to a different range of microphones. Now, I've loaded up here, I'm going to go for a long in the standard, in the cello. It has a room mix over here on the left. But this is one who also has a selected, it's got a mid microphone in the A, so the A represents the stage it's been playing in. And there's ones that are turned off here. There's a ribbon mic, another main mic, a main center mic, a surround, a high mic, and a high surround. And over here is a microphone from the B stage, and this one being the B dark. So let's just quickly solo each of these microphones to give you a sense. So this is the room mix from stage A. I'm going to solo in the small dry stage. Let's mute the other one. Oops, there's a bit more volume, let's do that. A lot drier, isn't it? But then I'm going to solo just the two in the main stage area. Putting in that dark one from the B gives it a lot more depth. It's got the dry elements. But you can also add in other microphones. I'm going to randomly select this microphone and the stereo main stage. Oops, forgot to turn them on. Really gorgeous. Now, I won't go into any detail here because, again, it's quite a sophisticated tool, but each of the columns, obviously representing the microphone, gives you a number of different features to be able to control the space of that microphone. So I'm going to quickly just turn off these other ones at the moment and focus on the main room mix. So this device here allows you to place the instrument in the room. So it's now, take it to the left, take it to the right. So you can place your cellos wherever you like. I think they're balanced at the moment according to normal seating arrangements. You can change the phase of it. You can turn it off, the equalizer. But if you double click, you also get an equalizer that you can change the rooms and the sound as you see fit. So a really sophisticated set of tools that you have available. So you can see the amazing range of control that you have. Again, to recap, not only an amazing range of articulations, but under the hood to be able to control the samples and understand where they're placed in the room to equalize them, give them the balance, is just an amazing amount of detail. And on top of that, if you're not much of a tweaker for the mixing room, it comes with a whole series of pre-mixes for each of the rooms. So you have a standard pre-mix, which gives you a close. So let's have a look at the close mics. Or perhaps we'll go for an ambient sound. There's a huge amount you can actually get to. So we've got full presets of close, the classic sound, a wide sound, a distant, ambient, lush, and lush long. There's Decatree multi-mic settings, the surround to stereo down mix, surround presets, special presets for the standard. So you can have like a compact and warm or a wall of cellos. Hey, let's do that because we're on cellos at the moment. So we'll mix in the wall of cellos. And then there's a special set of presets that are full. You can get a vintage sound, a narrow space, close and big, moving pad, huge opportunity to be able to play. And of course, you can go back to the default. You can load your own settings from a disk if you've got your own particular mix, and then of course, save it back to the disk. Okay, so there you have it. There's a walkthrough from top to bottom and from left to right to show you the extensive range of articulations across all three libraries, including the different mix windows and settings. I'm now going to show you a small composition I wrote using VSL, and on the other side of that, I'll give you my final thoughts and we'll wrap up today's video. So let's talk about how this composition process unfolded. I really, really enjoyed writing this piece of music with VSL Duality Strings because I find that the sound was so rich and so deep that it inspired me to explore and tumble towards the music more than otherwise might be the case. And so it stretched me to move into a style of composition that I might not ordinarily do. So I started with a tutti patch, shorts, staccato with a bold attack, and started noodling around. I started with a C minor. Don't know where it was going to go. Something like that. And that felt really strong and bold and really powerful and punchy with all the string sections coming together. So the piece that I actually started to write with is the bit you see here in the tutti itself. So that's what this sounds like. I'll solo it. So that became the basis of the whole composition. So I returned back to the start and thought, well, what can I do with that? So I wanted to give it some more depth and color because also I wanted to show off what the library could do. I didn't want it to do just all block chords in a staccato patch all the way through. So I mapped out all the pieces across violin 1, 2, viola, cello, and double basses. I added the tutti patch underneath to provide some depth and sustenance, if you will, to carry it through. So having arrived with that opening patch was just a variation, quite sparse. I added I think I started with the cello here, just to give you a sense, and a very simple opening. That is a cello using a soft détaché to really hold that bass line. And then I probably added a pizzicato in the bass line. So again, pizzicato, a regular pizz with a bold attack. Putting those two together to open it up, I'm going to turn the tutti off and we get... supporting each other really well, I thought. I quite like that because it got me away from thinking about cello and basses, which typically tend to double each other an octave apart. This one had a little bit more life in the cello, and the bass line itself was held by, obviously, the double bass. Okay, having arrived at that, I felt like there was a bit of a melody waiting to come out, so I employed the services of the VN2. And so in this case, again, I used a soft détaché. I also alternated, you'll see as the piece progresses, between a soft détaché with a détaché marcato. So if you're not familiar, marcato is like an impulse at the start of the note, a strong attack, if you will. And I put those two together, and this is what it sounds like when you add in the violin 2. So this might be a good point where I can show you also some extra work I did to include the expression maps and how to manage the articulations in Duality Strings. So again, I'm obviously using Cubase, which has a concept of expression maps. They're also available in logic. I think they're called articulation sets, but the principle is exactly the same. So I have to open up another window because there's so many articulations to choose from, and this is just a violin too. Look at all the different articulations that are available in this one instrument. Long polka, vibrato, col legno, detache, oh my goodness, all the way down through all the legatos, all the runs, the swells, the tremolos. I've barely touched the surface because I've only deployed, as I said, a soft detache with an occasional jump towards a detache marcato. So if you have a look at how it works, I'm flicking through those different expression maps, articulation sets. And what that means is, have a look here. I'm going to go back. There we go. It changes. To add a little bit of colour than otherwise might be the case. To complement what the double basses are doing, which are in a pizzicato arrangement, at least for the opening part of the piece. The missing piece in this jigsaw is, of course, the violas. The violas, I've employed them to do what violas are really good at, providing short, mid-range, staccato rhythm. And it's simply this. Likewise, I've also chosen a spiccato. Well, actually I thought it was detache, but this is a spiccato in this instance. But returning back to the start, to put them all together, I threw in some timpani. So the opening melody is carried by the violins. And coming towards the end of that loop, I went into a legato note for the violin. Now it was time to change over. The melody was going to be taken over by the cello. So in that case, I've switched from, in the cello, I've gone from, again, I have to expand my window here, from a soft detache to a legato when they become in. And I'll show you what that looks like in the window, in case you're not familiar. See all the expression mats working together. Watch for it to change into legato. Bing, there it goes. So it's now the cello's turn to take the melody. And of course, we're going to come home and bring it all home together. And this is where I first introduced the first violins. The first violins are essentially doubling the cello a couple of octaves higher. You can have a look at the notes here. Not quite, but it's almost a couple of octaves higher. A slight variation. I think it's I'm starting on an E flat with the violins, whereas the cellos are in a C. So it's probably starting a minor third higher, a couple of octaves and a minor third above that. And so put those two together and you get, I'm going to play the two lead here, being the cello and the violin one together to harmonise. And all that comes together nicely with the second violin because it becomes a counter melody to the opening melody of the violin 2. So adding the violin 2 back in. A little soft, I must admit. But put it all together, and with the tutti, I've gone from a relatively sparse rhythmic arrangement into a more dense one to give it some more body, a couple of crashing cymbals to bring it home, and it all sounds like this together. So there you have my breakdown of that composition. I hope you enjoyed that process as much as I did in writing it and sharing it with you. I hope it gave you an idea of what is possible with this extraordinary string library from VSL. All right, with all that done, we're nearly at the end. I'm going to give you my final thoughts and then we'll wrap up today's video. So what's the final verdict for VSL's Duality Strings? In a word, extraordinary. This is a high-end professional library that should be in the hands of every composer who wants to create beautiful and sophisticated string lines. It shines in nearly every major category. Firstly, the articulation set is amongst the most extensive I've ever seen in any string library. It has nearly every conceivable articulation that a competent orchestral string player may be called upon to deploy, giving you an opportunity to create music of incredible depth and maturity. Number two, the concept of recording two separate ensembles simultaneously to give you an amazing breadth of mic options to produce anything from warm and intimate to wide and expansive is absolutely gorgeous. The control the mixing panel gives you to customize your mics to an amazing degree is outrageous. 3. The beautifully laid out UI of the Synchron player makes it intuitive to navigate your way around with ease, and the software engineering prowess of the VSL developers is on display with its super efficient memory management algorithm and super fast loading times. Means you're working on your composition when with other libraries you have to go and make your lunch while they're loading. And of course, number 4, the quality of the engineering and recording is par excellence. The samples at each end of the frequency spectrum are rich and full, and I didn't hear any annoying chair squeaks or coughing that are not uncommon in other libraries. To use a painting metaphor, many string libraries out there are more akin to a paint roller, good for large, coarse-grained musical brush strokes. On the other hand, Duality Strings is like a set of very fine portrait brushes, enabling you to create masterfully detailed musical flourishes. To be clear, this is an extraordinarily refined tool, and like all such tools, it demands of you some time and effort to really get to know it before you can take full advantage of its capabilities. But like any endeavour worth doing, it will more than handsomely repay you for your efforts in your future compositions. All in all, I absolutely love this library, and as I mentioned earlier, this is my first introduction to VSL, but I strongly suspect that it won't be my last. If you truly value quality, then Duality Strings might be worth your time to explore too. And all that's left for me now is to say thank you once again for spending some of your time with me and Duality Strings. And if you got this far, a big nod of appreciation from me to you. At the Sampleist, we love making this content as our contribution to the composer community. So before you go, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and if you haven't already, leave me a comment below and tell me what you think of VSL's Duality Strings. This is Greg Revell for the Sampleist signing off, and as always, urging you to find your sound and find your soul. We'll see you on the next one.